All right, y'all, what's up, man? What's going on, man? Welcome to the podcast with Soul. Gumby Publishing, Astigmatism in My Soul. The podcast with Soul, Sean Xavier Gumby Jr., nor myself, Sean Xavier Gumby Sr. Do we wish to defame, libel, slander, or hurt anybody with the content of this video? Everything that I will be saying in this video will be coming from public information, which is court documents relating to the United States of America versus Dion Gatlin, who goes by the name in the streets of St. Louis as Cuffy. And this is related to the Tammy Cowins and the big Meech case and that whole thing. So I want to thank everybody that has subscribed. Appreciate you. Make sure you go follow me on my Instagram, same name, Podcast with Soul. Check me out on Facebook. It's my full name, Sean Gumby. And thank you in advance. And please leave a comment. All right, so point of information right off the top before I get into the remainder of the direct examination of Tammy Cowins, who's on the stand, testifying under oath on the stand at the Franks hearing, which took place October 17th, 2016, at the request of Dion Gatlin or Cuffy. Point of information right off the rip that I talked about yesterday. Yesterday, I put up a video where I talked about Tammy Cowins on the stand testified that she was asking the special agent in charge at that point, who was Keith Cromer in Atlanta, who had just got handed over to Keith Cromer by her former handler, DEA agent Jack Harvey. Now, if you read the paperwork, and I said this yesterday, when she was getting directly examined, when she was under direct examination by the United States government, by the U.S. Attorney Dean Hogue, she was asked, Jack Harvey retired? He said something to the effect of this, the attorney for the United States. When Jack Harvey retired, how soon after did you get introduced to Keith Cromer? She said almost immediately. In fact, I think it was the very next day. So after Harvey retires, he turns her over to Keith Cromer, who calls her the next day and begins to ask her, stay on board with us. You did such a fantastic job with Jack Harvey in taking down Terry White. We want you to stay on board. We got some work for you. So she asked Keith Cromer, well, what am I going to do? And he begins to tell her, she says, well, what would I do? And can I make, if I bring in something big, and Keith Cromer interrupts her before she can finish, Keith Cromer says, you'll make a lot of money. And then her very next thing is, can I get Demetrius Flannery a time cut? And then he responds saying, we can work on that, or we can look into that, something to that effect, right? Now, this is what's key about that. This is the first day that she meets the new agent, her new handler. This is the first day she meets him. This ain't like down the line, 7 months in, 4 months in, a year and some change in. she comes to him like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Can I get Demetrius Flannery's time cut? She says it right off the rip on the first day she meets him, right? Just keep that in mind. Now, where I left off yesterday, and if I didn't leave off yesterday, this is where I'm going to pick up today. And for your information, I locked my cat in the bathroom, so we ain't got to worry about Luna running around in the shot, jumping up on the radiator. And I'm going to introduce y'all to Luna one day. So she's still on the stand getting direct examined by the United States government attorney, Dean Hogue. And we get to the point where her name and her address and her job gets made public through the paperwork published online that the world can see, right? And anything, all of this paperwork and all of the paperwork that I've gone through is public information, okay? So now she starts to get threats, phone calls, people showing up at her house, calling her phone, asking her, how does it feel to be a paid informant? You dead? You understand? And she sees the, or somebody, and people start to call her, people that knew her, saying, you all right? You okay? And she's like, what? And then they explain to her. So she sees it, and she sees it, and she starts calling everybody to try to get this information taken down, right? So this is the government questioning her. And in March 2015, this is page 81 of 72. Excuse me, page 81 of 271 pages. This is the Franks hearing, volume 1. And in March 2015, okay, did you have occasion to go online and find any pleadings by the defense in this case, meaning Cuffy? Yes. Do you remember what they were, or can you generally tell us what they were? It was just statements of the case, and it was from, I think, Cuff's lawyer, Dion Gatlin's lawyer. And it was exposing me and my employment at the time and the address. And I was furious. So you went online, this is the lawyer, to look at this, and it's pleading basically, your name is in it, and my address is in it, right? So what she does is she immediately gets on the phone with the St. Louis DEA, trying to get in touch with them and tell them like, yo, what y'all doing, man? What y'all doing? Y'all got my name on this joint, and you know I'm a confidential informant. She couldn't call Keith Chrome at this time because she was no longer dealing with him, right? So she's dealing with 2 other agents. She's calling them. Nobody's answering the phone. She's leaving messages. And she says about 3 or 4 days later, could be sooner, she's not hearing nothing. So she calls the judge. She calls the judge and speaks to the judge's assistant. And this is what she says. This is crazy. I'm getting messages and calls in regards to this, and my name is in something that, you know, I'm in fear for my life. At the time, I said for something that I shouldn't be, and I wanted to talk to the judge. I got the name off the documents, the paperwork, and she said, let me have someone call you back. So this guy calls her back, and the dude who calls her back, right? A dude by the name of Matthew Drake calls her back And he's on the phone with her defending the DEA, right? He ain't trying to take it down. You understand? So she gets upset. She calls Cuffy's old attorney. By this time, Cuffy's got a new attorney. She calls the old attorney that Cuffy had when the initial statements were made. The affidavit, the sworn affidavit, and the likes, right? So, and she begins, now this is where, check this out. She gets on the phone with Cuffy's old attorney, right? And she says this to him. Not to the attorney himself, but to one of his associates. And I'm not going to give the name, it's in the paperwork. I said that my name is in something and you guys are exposing me for something and you haven't even had a discussion with me, and I'm furious about it. You exposed the company I was at that time and all of this information. And some of this stuff is just not true. Now, mind you, point in fact, this Frank's hearing is October 17th, 2016. This is after, according to the sworn affidavit she signed, where she went to meet with Big Meech and she spoke to him in 2015, after everything starts to unravel. Her sexual escapade with Keith Cromer comes out, and, you know, he tells her, I don't want my name caught up in this mess, right? But prior to that, we already went over what she stated, which was that Big Meech put her in touch with Suarez and Cuffy. Now, and I said some of this stuff is just not true. And it seems like when you read this, that the attorney for the government is leading her to the water to drink, right? Not letting her speak from her knowledge of truth. It's like he's leading her where he wants her to go, right? And later on in the direct examination, one of the attorneys for one of the other defendants objects. He steps up. He says, Your Honor, I know there's no jury here, but the counsel for the government is leading the witness instead of just letting the witness talk. And the judge just agrees. Okay? Now, the attorney for the government asks her, now, the information, all right, that you talked to him about, what, if any, information was it that upset you aside from your name being in the paperwork? Right? And here's her answer. The Demetrius Flannery portion, because he didn't, now I'm going off memory of the paperwork, is that I went to Atlanta to seek money. I went to Atlanta office to turn Cuff in, and I talked to agents to turn him over. Like, this is not even a coherent sentence, right? This is not even a coherent sentence. And in between each thought, there's dash dash, which I don't know what that means, but I can infer from, she spoke about 4 different things in one sentence, and neither of them correlated to what was said prior or after or subsequent, right? Let's read that again. Now, the information, all right, that you talked to him about, what, if any, information was it that upset you aside from your name being in the paperwork? Here's her answer, CS1. The Demetrius Flannery portion. Because he didn't, space, it could be like, now I'm going off memory of the paperwork, is that I went to Atlanta to seek money, I went to Atlanta office to turn Cuff in, and I talked to agents to turn him over. This is on page 84 of 271, line item 11 through 17. And he says, and that didn't occur? She says, that didn't occur. You've already told us how it was with Mr. Cromer. Correct. You see how he led her? You've already told us how it was with Mr. Cromer. Instead of saying, well, how was it? How did what you just said happen? And she would have said through Keith Cromer. But by this time, Keith Cromer is the perfect scapegoat. The nigga is under investigation with the Office of Inspector General. He's under investigation for Office of Professional Responsibility. You know, 2 of his underlings are also under investigation. He's getting ready to get fired. He's the perfect scapegoat. He's already acted outside of the bounds of his duty and having sex with a confidential informant in the middle of an investigation. So blame it on my man. He the perfect joint. Now, let's keep going. You've already told us how it was with Mr. Cromer. Correct. He is the attorney. And the investigation, and that's how it started, and that's how it went. Meaning how the investigation started. Let me read that again. And the investigation, and that's how it started, and that's how it went. And you felt that was a mischaracterization. It also indicated Mr. Flannery or Big Meech was the organizer or leader of that. And you don't believe that. You don't think that's true. This is the attorney for the government, like, you understand what I'm saying? Leading her. And she says, that's not true. Correct. There was some conversation with you and Mr. Suarez, okay, where he mentioned Meech or Buddy, meaning he called Meech Buddy. But aside from that, he wasn't the one initiating the contact. She says that is correct. That is between Suarez and Gatlin or Cuffy. And she says, and myself was setting it up. That is correct. And the attorney for the government says, that's my next question. In effect, really, you were the one that set up the ... that conversation or those conversations. And she says, that is correct. And then he says, the attorney, all right. And so you were upset with the interpretation that the agents took about the information regarding Mr. Flannery or Big Meech. Is that fair to say? And she says, excuse me, that is correct. Because he didn't have anything to do with anything. So correct. Meaning that Big Meech didn't have anything to do with anything. That Big Meech did not set up Suarez and Cuffy. This is what she's saying under oath on the stand, but she's a witness to the government. So that's an interesting point. Now, based on that, let's look at this. This happens under the same direct examination a few minutes before. This is how she contradicts herself. So the government asked her, Gatlin and Mr. Suarez, where did the conversation turn to narcotics or drugs? Or he's saying that's when it. Hold on, let me put that down because I want to get this right. I don't want to be wrong. You got to be right, man. Okay, now did there come a time in your relationship with Mr. Gatlin and Mr. Suarez where the conversation turned to narcotics and drugs? She says yes. Approximately when was that time? She says, I would say 2000 mid-year 2012. Okay, all right. And in 2012, how did that conversation begin? What was it that precipitated that conversation? This is what the government is asking. Hold on now. Put that up so we get the good light. Get the good light on the brother. She answers, well, the initiation was Fidel Suarez. He called and made some conversation about he needed to get rid of some type of pills, and I did know somebody that wanted to buy them. I was in a call with Keith Cromer at the time on the speaker in my car, and Keith said, tell him yes, meaning, yeah, you know somebody that want to buy pills. And shortly thereafter, I received a call from an agent in California, and that's how it started off transpiring from Fidel. Now, the government asked her this next question after this. Okay, was there ever a time when you were asked to give a phone number to Fidel at any point in time? She says yes. What were the circumstances of that information? Meaning, when? Who told you to get in touch with Fidel? What? Was there ever a time when you were asked to give a phone number to Fidel? Who told you to give a phone number to Fidel? Who? What were the circumstances of that information? She says, well, a couple times when I asked to give, no. Well, a couple times when I was asked to give, Fidel called and asked for Cuff's number. Then the government asks, did he say who? Tammy Cowins says, he said, Buddy told me to get Cuff's phone number, and I gave him Cuff's phone number. Now, we've already determined that the lawyer for the government already mentioned there was some conversation with you and Mr. Suarez, okay, where he mentioned Meech or Buddy. The government asked her, who is Buddy, for the record? I'm assuming he's speaking of Demetrius Flannery. So you've known him by that name, correct? Well, when he says Buddy, as he calls, yes. And did you do that? Yes, I did. So she says this 15 minutes before she turns around and said, not even 15 minutes, maybe 7-8 minutes after she turns around and says that, everything was wrong and Meech had nothing to do with it. But here, you can read this. This is page 63 of 271. Read that page 63, 271. You can read the whole page. So she has backtracked and now is saying that Meech had nothing to do with it. Okay? This is the paperwork. This is not me. Full disclosure. So some of the threats that she got, a Chicago number a number with the area code 773, after her name was put in the public database, a telephone number from Chicago with area code 773 starts to call her and says, they called her at her office and told her, "You're dead, bitch. And how does it feel to be an informant?" And she says, "Yes. How does it feel to be a paid informant?" This is what some dude was calling her. And then another dude called her and told her to be safe. You know, she was in a lot of danger, man. You know, right. So then, you can read all of this, and then, so this is what happened with this particular part, right? And she says, "I felt in danger. I received different phone calls from different individuals." So, this is what. And then after all this goes down, she asked the judge to close the courtroom. And she says, Tammy Cowins, after all of this goes down, right, or her name gets exposed, she asked the judge to close the courtroom. And then she says, "If you don't ask, I'll ask for myself and I'll send a letter to Washington, D.C., whichever. Or if I have to, I'll call her myself." Yep. So she was offered the witness protection program. This is it. The government asked her, "You have been offered WITSEC, and at this point you have declined, but it is still open." She says, "Right." So Tammy Cowins testifies on the stand that Big Meech did not have nothing to do with it, but minutes prior to that, she clearly implicates Big Meech by saying that Fidel Suarez called her and said to her, "Buddy told me to call you to get Cuff's number." So y'all can read all of that. Full disclosure, man. That was the end of the direct examination. That was the end of the direct examination. So now what's going to happen next, what I'm going to be talking about next, is the cross-examination by Cuffy's attorney. That's coming up next. I got a headache, so I didn't feel like reading it today. I went and worked out. But I'm going to read it, and that's where we're going to pick up on the next go-round. And, I just want to say to the younger dudes out there, you see how real this life is, right? This is not a rap video. This is not a rap song that you can put on for 3 minutes and 41 seconds and let it end and then replay it. This is a real situation with real consequences, dealing with real killers. And, a lot of you young dudes, you don't understand what you're doing. And I don't care what you do. I don't care if you break law, commit crime, do whatever you do. But this is what you need to do. If you are going to do that, right? Go to the library and get the legal dictionary of all the federal crimes, and it'll probably have the federal sentencing guidelines in there. Or if you're doing state crime, look at all the state crimes and the penalties that come with that, and look at your possible jail time you can get. And ask yourself, can I do this amount of time? Can I do 60 months? Can I do 36 months? And your lady and your son and your daughter's there, and somebody gonna be hitting your lady. Soon as you leave, somebody gonna be taxing. Big Boots gonna be over there taxing them. Soon as you leave. But ask yourself, can I do 36 months? Can I do 60 months? Can I do 96 months? Can I do 120 months? Can I do 180 months? Can I do 15 years? Can I do 20 years? Can I do 24? And if you can't do it, stop doing what you're doing, because that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. And when you choose to go on the side of what Tammy Cowins was getting down with, you see what happens. You see what happens. Podcast was sold. Sean G. Peace.